Okay. Good evening. Welcome to our very first night of senior presentations. If you're at MNCS for the first time, I just want to say welcome. We're really glad you're here. If you're a returning student, it's really great to have you back. I see a few of them who have already trickled in. Um, I'm Paul Jager. I'm one of the advisors here, and I also am the lawn boy. And this is one of my favorite nights of the year. For those of you who don't know, the senior project is a huge undertaking. It's a 300-hour project. It requires a community expert. It involves a 5 to 7 page research paper. And ultimately, this is a passion project. It's a legacy project. And when we talk about students who graduated many, many years ago, we often think about the senior project that they did. And so we're really excited for tonight. If you like what you see here tonight, know that there are two more nights that follow this. And so we'll be here again tomorrow starting at 5 and then Thursday at 5. And we'd love to have you. And so feel invited. Um, what else should I say? For the first time ever, we are live streaming senior presentations. If any of you have family who couldn't be here or friends who wish they could be here, they can still participate in a small way. And we have posted a link on our school Facebook. I don't have social media, so I have no idea how to get to that. But maybe you do. And if you have people in your world who would want that link, that's where you can find it. Okay. Is that good? We have refreshments over here, and please help yourself. We have restrooms in this back corner of the building for those of you who don't know. Um, we just want to make you feel comfortable. Okay, our first presenter. I have really been lucky to work with Evalyn Specht this year, and it's rare um, that a student has an opportunity to present their capstone project on their 18th birthday. And that's exactly what's happened tonight. Let's just give it up. Right? 18. Um, and so we're really excited for this moment. Uh, Evalyn is the heart is that's the word I want to bring up with Evalyn. She puts so much heart into everything that she does. I really want you to focus on the community aspects of this project because it's done so much to give back to the communities that she really cares about. And those are the kind of people that I want to share this planet with. And it just makes me very proud um, of Evalyn and thankful and just I'm blown away to have had the opportunity to serve as Evalyn's advisor. And so I'm really excited for you to hear from Evalyn in all of her 80s glory tonight. And I also want to introduce a colleague of mine, Diane Wiedrich, who's worked with Evalyn for a while. She'll share a few things, and then Evalyn, you're going to take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Again, thanks for coming. Great honor, great privilege to be able to work with you, Evalyn. You're just going to wow us tonight. I know that. So, all right, there you go.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming to senior presentation night. So I have one question for you guys, and that is, have you ever looked at something really hard and difficult to do and thought, I could do that easily? That is me, and especially this project. So you might be asking, why would I choose to do this then? First of all, I wanted to. Sometimes wanting to do something is a good enough reason when you can learn from it. And I made sure to factor in plenty of learning opportunities into this project. Second is, I knew I would enjoy it. That is one of the most important things when doing a massive project like this. Uh, I have been sewing since ninth grade. This is a picture of me working on my very first project, knit dress. If any of you don't sew, just know knit is the hardest fabric to work on with the sewing machine. So I kind of just jumped straight into the deep end. But don't worry, I did not learn from my mistakes. Next year, for my third sewing project, I made a corset. I also wanted to teach myself many skills with this project. I want to teach myself to learn more about garment construction, and I want to teach myself how to make my own patterns. I also would have to work with others for this project. Most of my projects in the past have been very me-centered. I want to do this. I think this would be best. This project's kind of the opposite, where I'm making things for other people, so I have to listen to what they want. So this is helping me develop those soft skills, like compromise. And finally, fashion design, seamstressing, tailoring, that was a career path I wanted to explore with this project. For the first part of my project, I made a vest for my advisor, Paul. And I say making is a better term. I have not completed it yet. But I did work with him to come up with the design. Paul had a very clear idea in his mind what he wanted, so that made my work a lot easier since there was not a lot of back and forth. I attempted to teach myself a technique called flat patterning, which is when you take a person's measurements and use that to mathematically make a sewing pattern. That did not go as planned, although I did make this whole vest without using any sewing patterns. I also taught myself to sew this thing called a welt pocket. This was my test run. I'm going to throw it to you, Zane. Please, oopsies. Please pass that around. I also shot for fabric without Paul there, which was a bit tricky because sewing stores don't always have the best lighting. So I had to take the photo, text it to my dad, also give a description of it. He would text it to Paul, then he would send me Paul's response. I'm also gonna, at the end, have a complete vest for Paul. That is beautiful. Just don't have it yet. So these are some pictures of my work. This is my first attempt at flat patterning. There was a lot of issues with it. The neck was too small. The neck hole was too small. The arms were too small. It was about 3 inches too short. And I suspect that is because most of what I know about garment construction comes from making women's clothing for myself and not men's clothing. This was my first ever piece of men's clothing. So I didn't know the principles of making that. One of the techniques I did know for making women's clothing that I carried over is making darts. Darts are a triangular piece of fabric that you take out to create a curved look. I use these in the shoulder of the vest. That's Paul wearing the final mock-up over there. I used a quilting cotton as the muslin for this. And the muslin's essentially a throwaway fabric that you can use to make stuff. But before I get more into patterning and all, there's one very important principle of fabric that you have to always think of when patterning, and that is the fabric grain. If something's on grain, it's cut on the warp thread or the weft thread, which meet at this 90-degree angle. When you pull on the warp and the weft, these have, I'm passing out some fabric pieces that have, no, I'm going to give him a separate one. X's on them, and if you pull on one side of the X, it won't stretch. But if you pull on the ends of the fabric, it will. And the stretch is called the bias. And when you pull on a bias, it stretches. So that is why you have to keep the grain line of a fabric consistent. And that's because this stretch can really change how a garment lays. This is a principle for every single type of woven fabric, including this herringbone that I used to make the vest. Here is me sewing that pocket I passed around a bit ago. And here's me sewing one of the final pockets. Paul wanted his pockets to have a denim trim because if you know Paul, you know he loves denim. So I had to make my own denim bias tape for this, which is a piece of fabric um, like this big that is cut on that bias I mentioned earlier. And because it's cut on the bias, it can stretch and it can curve around things, and it's good for binding edges. This is me tracing out the final pattern piece using actually the lining, which is a muslin I had, on top of this beautiful cashmere silk blend herringbone fabric. The second half of my project was I am making a dress for my aunt Amanda, my lovely, lovely aunt. I worked with her for a design. She had more ideas of what she wanted as opposed to a final vision, so this was a lot of drawing for me and back and forth, which was a good experience to learn. I taught myself basic draping, which is a patterning technique where you essentially pin the fabric onto a dress form to basically fit it to someone's body. I'm also using pattern books, like this one, which is my mom's, to make the skirt pattern and the sleeve patterns. I also made this duct tape dress form, and I'm patterning the dress, and I made her a lovely fitted bodice that's not finished yet because I had to undo it to edit it. But these were some of the first designs I drew out. These were called, I'm calling them silhouette designs, and they're essentially the silhouette she wants because she wanted a flowy dress with certain features. So these were two options I made. And then these were some more silhouette drawings I sent her, closer to the final thing. She wanted a fitted bodice, longish bell sleeves, and a flowy skirt, plus a waistband. This is a final design we settled on, except this would be a scoop neck instead of a V-neck. And that is a picture of me freeing her from the duct tape prison I put her in for this, which is her payment for this whole thing. And that duct tape prison became this. There are two types of draping. There is tape draping, which is, you can see the red here. That's draping tape. And there's pin draping, where you pin the thing to it. I did a combination. With this, I put draping tape on the dress form, and then I pinned things to it. Then I used pins, and I pinned around the seam line, though I didn't pin into the dress form. And I added a seam allowance of 1/2 inch. This is my aunt trying on the final fitted bodice. And I actually used an interesting technique for this because typically there's two ways to make a fitted bodice. You do bust darts, which are darts, like I mentioned, that go here and here. Or you do a princess seam, which was a technique developed to replace darts. Because this bodice is slightly higher waisted, the princess seam doesn't fully fit. So what I did was I have the princess seam, then I have two very slim darts, which also reduces the bulkiness of the whole garment. So I'm very proud about that. I met with two community experts as a part of this project. I met with Joy Teakin, who is a fashion designer in the Twin Cities, and she's been running her own business for over 20 years. I met with her this December, and I met with Lilia Leonhardt. She runs Generations Boutique in St. Peter, Minnesota. I spoke with both of them about going into this business and what they do. I spoke with Joy about what kind of things you should do as a beginning fashion designer as opposed to someone more established, and general, what's it like making customs versus doing fashion shows. Whereas with Lilia, I spoke about her experience as a new business owner as she bought the business 3 years ago. What's it like deciding what clothes to buy for her boutique and all that kind of stuff. This was a really good experience because it gave me two very different views on the fashion world because they're at different ends of the spectrum, and it helped me find out where I would want to fall in it if this is the path I choose to pursue. I did a massive community piece for this project because I love this school. I love MNCS. I love the community it has, the community it has given me. And I love the ways it has helped me learn and helped me grow as a person. So I wanted to give back to the school and to St. Peter as well, to what I felt it has given me. Although the first thing I did on this chronologically was I was an election judge this past November for a local election in St. Peter. I essentially was the person who passed out ballots, although technically I was an election judge trainee because at the time I was a minor. The main difference between that and this and being a full election judge is there's certain things you cannot do. I also started an improv club this past fall. I did it because I love improv so much and I wanted to share that with the school. But also, I believe that improv improves confidence and it combats humanity's number one fear, public speaking, because it puts you in a situation where you have to be confident and you have to learn to speak in front of people, but it's very low stakes and it's fun. And I have seen experiences like that with theater and speech and improv where it has impacted me that way. So that was something I wanted to share with the community. I also led a book group this past January. It was Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, my favorite Shakespeare play. I taught the text, the themes of the play, as well as about the historical context around it, both with it being written over 500 years ago and with it being written for a specific festival, Twelfth Night. I also had people act it out as we read, which is something I learned from a former teacher here, Jen Brunick. And personally, I believe acting things out as we go is a better way to learn a play because it gets people more engaged in it. There's a lovely little picture there of the sword fight scene in Twelfth Night. And now for the Beasts of Beasts, my biggest part of this whole thing, costuming the school play this spring. I did a bunch here, and I worked with Zane so much as he was the other person on costumes. I designed costume concepts, which instead of doing like drawings, I was like, this character would wear these kind of things. I also worked with Zane a lot on color palettes, and we went thrifting for clothing. Although something he did that I did not is he tailored so much of the costumes to fit our actors. I also made baked goods for the bake sale that we had this January to get money for costumes and set and for if people wanted to continue doing theater here in the future. And I also helped run it. Here's one of the cute little gingerbreads I made for the bake sale. He's probably eaten. Another thing I did was I took the actors' measurements as you want the actors to fit the clothing you buy them, or at the very least, you buy it big and then you take it in. I also did a lot of management duties. I managed the costumes. I cleaned up, I ironed before shows. I organized stuff, and I made costume rules, like no eating in costume and fold your clothes. For the love of God, fold your clothes. And no doing triple backflips. All of these to make sure the costumes don't get damaged or I'm allowed to eat lunch because there are multiple times where I was folding stuff after rehearsal and I had to fold all the way through lunch. I also made a list of all the costume pieces we needed, which in the end, I counted it up. We were handling about 66 costume pieces. And it was color coded about the stuff we needed to buy and the stuff we were pulling from people's closets. And it was done by character. It was wonderful. But this part was hard and it was a lot, especially because I was also acting in this play. So there were about 3 weeks where I could do literally nothing but the play, and that really hampered me working on my producibles for this project. Although this was a wonderful experience, we had a wonderful cast, a wonderful crew. We had wonderful directors, a wonderful playwright, a wonderful stagehand, and again, Zane was amazing to work with. And again, I did this all because I love MCS and I wanted to give back to it. And like with stuff with the play, I wanted, hopefully, for other kids to continue doing stuff like this. Of course, no project comes without some challenges, and this was one of the hardest ones I've ever done. Something I actually struggled with a lot, if you can tell by this list, was self-management. I struggled with getting myself to do things, both with procrastination, and I have this thing where if it takes 5 steps to start one thing, it's like climbing a mountain. I struggled a lot with balancing my project, both with balancing things internal in my project, like my paper and my community piece and my product, as well as balancing with things outside my project, like balancing my project with a PSEO class I took. I also struggled with overextending myself, doing too much, and then I fell into burnout 3 times during the course of this project. Once in the fall, once in January, February, and once because of the play. And like I said, the play was a massive time suck, and I didn't complete my product in time for this. But it was also the best project I've ever done. I taught myself how to drape, and I taught myself the foundations of flat patterning. I am making 2 high quality pieces, some of which have a decent amount of hand sewing involved. Uh, I had this massive community piece that was way over 100 hours. Um, and all things considered, I managed my burnout well. I was able to advocate for myself. I was able to take a step back, and I was able to recognize I was falling into burnout, which is something I had not previously been able to do. I also had so many learning experiences from this project, especially regarding the play. I was not running rehearsals like Liz, but I did help occasionally. And just so you know, it is tiring to manage children. So, teachers, I love you all so much more. I also enjoy doing this, no matter how frustrated or sad or angry I got. I never hated this project. And I think that is my biggest achievement in all this. I visited 5 colleges during this whole project course, 2 of which I did in the summer and forgot about until recently when I was going through my head rush time logs. So, kids, if there is ever a reason to log time, if there's ever a sign to do it, this is your sign. Log your time. I also took a PSEO course in this fall at Gustavus. It's an intro to biology course. And it really encouraged to me that biology would be a career and it would be a pathway I want to pursue. Speaking of pursuing pathways, my future plans is to attend Luther College this fall. And I plan to double major in biology and theater. Biology, I have always loved science. Here's a picture of baby me pipetting in mom's lab. I would be about 3 or 4 in this picture. Science is amazing. I love it. And fun fact, this picture was taken at Luther because that was mom when mom was still a professor there. So this is kind of a full circle moment in a way. And a special thank you to my mom for helping me so much with this project, but also for raising me and being such a wonderful parent. And also a thank you to my dad for helping me so much with the organizational bits of this project. And again, for raising me and caring about me and being a wonderful parent. To my former advisor, Nicole, for basically teaching me all I know about pro- projects and how to manage yourself and for always supporting me. And to my current advisor, Paul, stop walking around. I'm thanking you. For welcoming me into his advisory this year and putting in a lot of extra effort for me, even though I'm a senior, so I'm mostly self sufficient, and for always caring about me. And to my case manager, Diane, for being so supportive and being so helpful and always being ready and able to help me however she could. And a thank you to my grandma, Grandma B, for helping me so much with this project and giving me a lot of advice about sewing. And a thank you to my aunt, Amanda, for basically agreeing to be a guinea pig for this project. Yes, in exchange for a nice dress, but she agreed to be wrapped in saran wrap and duct tape. So thank you for that. And a thank you to my community experts, Joy Teakin and Lilia Leonhardt, for being such wonderful resources for me. And thank you to my friend, Dylan and Liz and Coca and Zane for always supporting me and for being such wonderful people and for working on the play with me and always listening to me when I had a problem. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to the cast and crew of the play. You guys did a really hard thing. They did such a hard thing, and they stepped up, and they did it all in 3 weeks. And thank you to the people who joined my book group and made it worthwhile and were so active and participative in it. And thank you to Danielle for always supporting me and for being so involved with the play and so helpful. And thank you to senior team for helping me with scheduling and reminding me to do things. And thank you to literally every advisor in the school who I have known. And I don't know if I have the time to thank everyone individually, but you have all given me such a wonderful experience here. And you have all helped me so much in so many different ways. So thank you. Any questions? That's sane. Well, I want to finish my product, that's for certain. A lot of times those projects come to me and when I want to do them, I don't plan them out. So, not in particular. Everything when you're starting it will take 10 times longer than you anticipate. I didn't say this during my presentation. I originally wanted to make 5 pieces like this. I was ambitious. So that, but also think about not starting with a knit dress. Maybe start with a straight weave cotton thing. Like start off a lot easier than I did. Yes, Pam. Oh, sorry. I've been thinking about it, but I also don't think I'll have time until maybe one of like my junior or senior year. I'm not certain. Just dad. Mhm. I do. I love doing it. I'm not against making things for other people. Um, I'm open to that. It's really like in those first years of college, I want to focus on my studies and all is the major thing. That'd be something that I would try to start up later as opposed to my junior sophomore year. I mean, my freshman sophomore year. But I do see that potentially, but a lot of it is like stuff happens, life happens, we'll just see what happens. You can come up on the stage and I can film you if you want to. I'd rather you not. Mhm. like commission a piece? That is dependent on a bunch of things. This vest, I'm not charging him for the vest. It's a gift, but I did the math for the vest, and if I do a 25-hour rate, which is what Indeed says is the national average for a seamstress, um, and I did an uptick for the pieces that had to be hand sewn, like 20% uptick, it would cost around $490. But that is with me slicing in half the design process because I did things during the design process that I knew would make it take longer, but would help me learn better. Like I hand sewed every single mock-up I did, so it would be gentler on the fabric, so I could reuse the fabric more. But that did make things that would take 10 minutes take 30 to an hour. If I were to do the hour straight up, this would be a $750 vest. A lot of it is relative to things. Like another thing would be if Paul, for this hypothetical new vest, didn't want pockets, the price would dramatically decrease because the pockets have to be hand sewn on. Or if instead of wanting me to make the pattern, he had a sewing pattern he wanted me to sew, that would also decrease the price because I would have to do all that design. Does that make sense? Yes, Liz. I don't really remember. It was a while ago. It was ninth grade. But I kind of was like, it was kind of like an impulse thing, I think. I was like, I want to make a dress. And mom was like, sure. And mom sewed the most of the dress you saw me sewing there was actually the mock-up for it. The actual dress, because it was a tighter knit. It was a lot more frustrating, and mom sewed most of that for me, and it didn't make a dress; it made a skirt. Um, oh, hard one. I preface so much. I think how much I was able to accomplish with it. I did so much, and it didn't feel like a lot to me, but looking at it now, I did so much. Uh, Latest by the end of the school year. Late May.
This on? Yep. So if everybody could take their seats, we're gonna get started with the second presentation tonight. Yeah, it's on. I already tested it, right? Um, when Evalyn was talking about number one fear, yep, that's what I'm feeling right now. So I'll be quick and hopefully fairly painless. My name is Anthony Sonic. I'm one of the advisors at the school, and I've had the privilege over the last year to work with Brad as his advisor. Brad is somebody, and I don't know if Paul mentioned this when he was introducing Evalyn, but we have a handful of students right now that are our first class from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade that are graduating this year. So Brad is one of those. So, I mean, I think how many are in the building right now? Raise your hand. So I think give them a round of applause, not just Brad, but that's cool. I think if we were talking about it before presentation night, I think there were what, 5 of you, I think, that are left. So that's pretty awesome to be a part of that. Um, like I said, I've only been Brad's advisor for the last year, but I've always had a connection with him. I remember meeting him when he was in 6th grade, and he and I share a lot of the same interests. So I've really come to like know Brad in a like kind of a personal way too, and we talk a lot about things outside of school, and I think that's part of being a good advisor is having that kind of connection with the students. So I've really enjoyed having that kind of connection with Brad. So I think I'll just stop there. Our second presenter for the evening is Bradley Petsch.
Yeah. Can everyone hear me all right? All right, perfect. Thank you all for coming out here or watching on the YouTube like my uncle is because he's in Wisconsin working right now. My project is welding and welding fabrication. Wrong button. Why am I doing this project? Well, since I was about 10, 11 years old, I've been really interested in welding and being a millwright thanks to my uncle Bullseye or Lance. You'll hear me switch between them a lot. Same person. But I've always been really interested in something around that field. I've always loved working with my hands. I can't sit behind a desk to save my life, but I can do 10 hours doing something with my hands and not even think anything of it. So this was kind of just a way to really test the waters and see if I wanted to be in the welding field and in a fairly technical field. Because if it's not challenging, it's boring, is kind of the way I look at everything. My time at Linder Enterprises. I work at a company called Linder Enterprises. We are a specialty fabrication company. We build custom staircases for very, very, very rich people. They are all built out of metal. Every one of them is custom. There is never two that are the same. Could be for the same building, but they are not the same. So I started back last April around there. And my first stair will be in the next slide over, but I've had a lot of time to really get into the fabrication and the welding aspects of everything. This stair over here was the first stair I ever ran what was called lead on. I don't know why that is not shutting off, but I guess it's staying. But it was the first stair I ever ran what's called lead on. It means you are the person building the stair. You're not taking orders from someone, running around for them. You're building it with someone else and you make the choices. So I started out by doing the stringers is when I jumped on the stairs. The stringers are the metal pieces along the side of the stair. I did that with my coworker Austin. He's kind of my mentor at work. He's showed me just about everything I know. He is a truly amazing teacher and great person to work with. So he showed me how all the tips and tricks on how to hang stringers and get them to be just about perfect. Then he went on the road, so me and another one of my coworkers, Ward, jumped on in the stair and ran lead. We put what's called top cap on. You can't really see it in this picture, but it goes in between the two stringers there. And that is what holds basically everything together. It gets fully welded out, everything gets welded together, and you could hold this entire building up by that stair. Everything is structural. So that was a really cool stair to work on. This other stair here is called Boston Raffles, is what we called it. It was going into a place in Boston, up a skyscraper. So this stair had to come apart in 73 pieces. Everything had to be able to fit into an elevator and down a hallway into somebody's apartment. Don't know why anyone would want that, but it was still a pretty cool stair to work on. Wasn't my favorite, but still an interesting learning experience. This is kind of the stair I'm working on now. It's a bit of a different style. Essentially, it's like a box, and the treads get set on top of the stair, and that is for somebody's house. So just imagine spending about $800,000 on the staircase in your house. I wish. This is kind of just a picture of like the shop. There's more to it on both sides, but it's kind of the coolest picture I have of the shop. I thought it was pretty cool. This is another picture of the stair I was running lead on from the top side. It was probably about 23 feet tall, I think it was about. It was just low enough we could pick it up with the hoist. This was the first stair I ever worked on there. I don't really remember much about it because I was only working, when I started, I was only working half days, 3 days a week. So I never really got to be fully enveloped in it, but it was still a pretty cool stair. And I was kind of glad to be working on it. So during the summertime, I went to LA for Linder. We had to put in a glass guardrail for the company Dior in their new building right on Rodeo Drive. So I got to be in the rich part. We spent 23 days there, my coworker Austin and I. Uh, we had to put on, I think it was about 65 pieces of glass. Each piece of glass averaged out at about 250 pounds, heaviest being about 500 pounds. It was really cool and interesting to look at. This is the start of the stairs. Everything is wrapped in stone. So, like the top of the stairs and the side of the stairs wrapped in stone. The bottom was drywall, and the drywallers they had on there were truly the most skilled workers I had ever seen when it comes to drywall. They made that drywall look exactly like the stone. You could not tell a difference without touching it. I've got more pictures. Here's from the bottom going up. It was a 3-story stair. It was probably about a $7 million stair that was installed. So again, and you'd think that a lot of customers would be using the staircases. There was an elevator 20 feet away. This is what we were hanging the glass off of. They're called standoffs. There was 4 of those on each one, and it's pretty much those standoffs are bolted straight to the stairs. So it's really structural, and it was interesting to learn. It was a lot different than shoe glass, which I only did just a little bit on the bottom of the stairs there. And this was the scaffolding we were working on the entire time. It got to be really annoying to try and work around that scaffolding with very fragile glass. Making a dark house fishing spear, which is what this is. So I worked with my uncle Lance because he owns a small spear making company called Christine Customs. So I got to do everything. Everything was by hand except the frame for the head was cut out with a plasma table. Everything else you did yourself. So I started out by cutting out the barbs out of a square stock and then putting them on the belt sander and grinding them to about a 45-degree angle. Then I put my round tube in there with the square stock into the jig he had, welded it, and you have to be really slow and moving around with your welds because this is all fairly thin metal. And if you pump too much heat into it, you'll just warp everything and it will not look good. So once I got that all welded out, I had to take it to the belt sander and spend about 45 minutes to an hour sanding down every single one to make the welds disappear, round everything off, and stay away from rounding the end of the barb off because you still want that to hold the fish. But it was still pretty cool, interesting to do. Never done it before. He can do a spear in about 10 to 15 hours. Times that by about 4, and you maybe got around where I was at for this spear. The next step is to weld all of the tines onto the frame of the head, which again, you have to go really slow and jump around a lot and let it cool down. So a lot of it is one weld, wait 20 minutes for it to cool down, lay another weld. But once you get done with that, you grind everything down on the face of it with like an angle grinder with a VSM pad in it. And then you take it over to this sander here, and that allows you to be able to grind the radius pieces on the inside to just kind of make everything look good. Because as much as you want this spear to be functional, if someone is spending $400 to $500 on a custom spear, it needs to be custom. It needs to look great. It needs to look like a piece of artwork because that is the whole point of it. Otherwise, go to Flea Farm, buy a $150 generic spear. But once you sanded everything down in the inside, I took a air router and rounded off every edge on the head of the spear, except for the tips, the barbs, obviously. The reason you do that is one, it cuts through the water better, and two, it looks better when it's painted. You don't want square edges on everything because it looks like cheap and you just didn't try. The next step was to mill out the weight, which the weight is this part of the spear here. And it just gives you all of the weight. It probably weighs 8 pounds. But the first step was to just cut off the round tube. And then I milled out the little part there. I left a 1/4 inch. And then I tapered it back at a 22.5-degree angle for about 3/4 of an inch. And that's so it lines up in the head of the spear correctly. And then I flipped it over in the CNC and I milled out the other side. I drilled a 1/2 inch hole for the handle to stick into because you don't want it to just bump into there. You want it to be really secure. And then I did it at about 4-degree angle and I tapered it back, I'd say about 3 inches because again, you don't want anything to just look chunky and crappy. It was definitely really interesting learning how to use the CNC lathe, and I had a lot of fun with it. Then the next step is cut out the handle. I cut my handle at 5 feet, and then you stick it into the weight, and I welded it out. You don't have to be as cautious with how much heat you're pumping into this because it's a lot thicker material than the head. So I welded it all in one go. I tacked it, and then all I did was as I was welding, I rolled the handle back towards me until I was done welding. Then I ground down the weld completely to kind of taper it off so it doesn't look like there was an edge there. It looks like it's supposed to naturally go up. That's kind of what it looks like with the handle in the weight. And then you stick the handle and the weight into the head, and we had to use 2 metal plates and some shims to get it just about perfectly centered. Tack welded it on there, and then went back to the slow welding because the head will just pick up if you just weld on it nonstop, and it'd look crappy, and I'd have to restart. This is what it looked like once I got done at Lance's. I took a piece of sandpaper and I ran down everything. And then I gave the spear to one of my coworkers so he could sandblast it at work and put a coat of our primer on it, which is really expensive, good stuff. And then I used spray paint to paint it this tan color. I did that at the shop at school. So I had the spear painted. So the next step was to, if it'll work, was to cut out the tine guard here. And my uncle gave me a piece of curly maple, which is a pretty expensive piece of wood. And its reason it's called curly maple is because all of the grains kind of curl and it looks beautiful. So I was originally going to do this at school and on a Friday until I went, well, crap, I need my dad's tine guard because I don't know what angle I'm supposed to cut that at. And it so happens to be in his pickup in Shakopee. So I had to wait till the next day, grabbed his tine guard, and I just traced it out on this piece of wood here. And then I used the miter box and the table saw to cut it down. My miter box didn't quite have enough angle to cut the correct angle, so had to hold the piece of wood at the right angle and cut at the same time. No fingers were lost, but I would not suggest it. And then to drill out the holes, I just kind of centered it up and I'd push, and the tines would make a mark where I need to put the holes into. And it took me a long time to drill the holes because trying to drill straight on an angled piece, not easy at all. Then I hung it up in my very, very clean shop and I stained it. I wanted to choose a stain that would still allow the grain to really pop, but at the same time not be the same white color because I wasn't really a fan of the white color. So I found a stain, I think it was like a gray stain. I forgot the name of it. But I think it turned out pretty well for everything. Y'all can come up here and look at it once the presentation's over. I don't want to hand it out because it's pretty much a weapon in the school. Then it was onto the rope. I did a 4-strand braid. I would not recommend. It took me in total 10 hours to braid 10 feet of rope. By the end of the second day, I was so tired. I wanted to do 15 feet, and I solely decided that 10 feet was enough. Because it sucked to work with 25 feet of rope on each end, and you'd have to run it through. It was at least a 2-person job, and it really sucked. But there's kind of a picture of it done. It's also here. I did like a white and purple with a forest green. I think it turned out pretty good for that. My community piece. So my community piece was to make a easy flow oil waste management drain for a staff member, Elise's husband. Now this is what it looks like from the company. They have all the tools needed for these. They run you about $1,400 if you want to buy one online. But well, all they do is they use a laser cutter, cut it all out. They laser weld everything, grind it down. It probably takes them 3-4 hours to make one. Took me a lot longer because I've never made one, and my tools were a MIG welder, angle grinder, and a plasma cutter. And the plasma cutter is not a good idea. And I'll kind of explain why. So I first started out by cutting the edges here, and I used a plasma cutter, but the steel was way too thin to be using a plasma cutter. It's only 1/8-inch steel, and all that does is cause the steel to warp. So for the inside sloped pieces, I used an angle grinder. It sucked. It took a long time, but it worked. So I measured everything out. I ran a chalk line off of each edge to find where my middle's supposed to be, cut it all out, put it at the angle, and then I cut little like 1-inch strips, and I kind of just shoved everything down and tacked the 1-inch strips. And then I flipped it over and I cut 2-inch wide strips all the way down the seams and tacked it on the backside, and then flex sealed all of the seams. And flex seal caulking works amazing. It is truly great stuff until your $5 caulking gun breaks and you have to cut the tube open and do it by hand. Then it becomes a sticky, time consuming thing because, fun fact, it doesn't come off skin for about a week. My experience week. So I ran an experience week with the advisor Paul. It was called Dirty Hands Clean Money. The goal of it was to explore careers that don't require you to go to college. It was for blue collar careers, unions and non-union jobs. I had a lot of fun planning this and doing it, and I believe everyone else had a lot of fun. It was a 3-day experience week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And on Monday, in the morning, we went to Arnold's Case IH in Mankato. They are a tractor dealership and a tractor mechanic place. And they really pulled out all of the stops for us. They did way more than what they needed to do, and they were truly happy for us to be there. So they ran us through their mechanic shop, their parts place. They told us about the business end of it. It's a family owned business. We got to learn about their benefits, their pay wages, what their hours look like different times of the years because they have to travel during harvest and planting to go to the field and fix tractors, combines, sprayers, all that stuff. So it was really cool. And then they also brought out 3 tractors for us. They brought us out a silage combine, really fancy dancy 2025 case combine, which I felt really broke just touching because it will run you about $1.5 million. And then they brought out a hinged 4-wheel drive tractor and were giving kids rides around the place with it, which was really cool. They even gave Paul a ride. I have a picture if anyone wants to see it. I'll show you after. And then we had some time to kill because we were just in Mankato. So we went to the Buffalo Park National Park and we got to look at the buffalo, spend some time, eat lunch, and then we went on a tour at the JRTC Electrical Union in Mankato. They have a training center there. And it was a pretty cool place to go to. I know at least one kid is very interested in that field, so he wanted me to give him the information, which I did for the place. And everyone who was giving us tours was always very, very honest about what the work was like, what it does to your body. They were honest about everything. They weren't trying to lie to you or try and like, oh, look at this. We are amazing. Nothing's bad about this company. No, they'd tell you what was bad and what was good. On Tuesday, we went to Minneapolis to go see the local 455 pipe fitters, steam fitters, and HVAC refrigeration units union. Their training center is absolutely massive. It's probably about the size of a city block. They dump, I think it was about $6 million a year into their training center to keep everything up to date. We toured this place for hour and a half. I had a lot of fun touring it. I think everyone else did. Our tour guide, Jeremy, he's only been in the union for 12 years, and his benefits are already amazing. His 401k, all that stuff, his pension. It was a really cool place to go tour, and I'd love to go tour it again. Then in the afternoon, we went to the local one union, the tiling and masonry. They run a 6-week training program, and that is all they require, and then it's on the job training. Our tour guide, I loved him because he didn't put up with anyone's crap, especially from the students. And he was very honest about what the work field was like. He told us stories about himself, his career in there, and he said, "Don't join unless you plan on being smart with your body, because if you're not smart, when you're 40 years old, you won't be able to walk." Then on Wednesday, it was kind of more of a relaxed day, end of the week, and I had taken off work to go tour my own work. So at about 9 a.m., my boss, Danny, and we gave the group of kids a tour around my own work. This is immediately when you walk into the shop as an employee. So it was pretty cool. I think they all found the tour pretty interesting. And then this picture was back in our sandblast room where we stood for like 30 minutes asking questions. And Paul really called me out by asking me what was the most expensive thing I've ever messed up there, right in front of my direct boss. Uh, my future plans. So I either plan on joining the local 455, which they do require you to go to college for 2 semesters in their pipe fitting and steam fitting program, and then it is a 5-year apprenticeship. It was it seems really nice. Their apprenticeship wages are really good, and I'm really interested in their benefits. Or I'm going to join the same union as my uncle, the Carpenters Millwright Union. They also have really good benefits. They travel, and millwrights, I've always kind of been interested in the career because it's very technical. Reflecting on my project as a whole, I'd say everything on my project went pretty dang well. I would have loved to weld at more places, but I probably contacted 15 to 20 companies just seeing if I could watch or, have them teach me something. I never got a response once, which I don't blame them. I am a liability because I'm a kid. I'm a kid, and if I got injured there, it'd be really bad for them. But I'd say I kind of wish I would have picked up on the project a little sooner, like worked on it a lot more before. But at the same time, I like working under stress and short timelines. So I'd say I had a lot of fun doing this project, and it's definitely made me more interested in the welding career and possibly even traveling for welding. It's definitely made me more interested. My thank yous are to the senior team for always meeting with me, always giving me ideas and helping me along. To Linder for keeping my broke self employed and teaching me so much more than I could ever explain about welding and welding fabrication. They've truly taught me a lot in the year I've been working there. To my uncle, Lance, for letting me use the shop, teaching me how to build this spear and giving me the materials to build it. To Paul for running an experience week with me. I had a lot of fun running the experience week, and I kind of wish more students ran experience weeks for their projects because it truly gives you an opportunity to explore everything about your project on the school's dime and you get credit for it. So it's a win win. To my advisor, Anthony, for always meeting with me about my block plans, always helping me when needed, and kind of just being an ear when I need it and just helping me throughout the year. It's truly been an honor to be in his advisory. He's a lot of fun to be with. Does anyone have any questions? I have not. I need ice for that. Yeah, it's for ice fishing, spearing. Well, it was a $15,000 Miller welder that I melted from welding so much. I yeah, got to watch it. It died peacefully. It was like a cowboy. All it did was just dispense smoke, and she was history. My uncle was the one who designed the spearhead, but at this design, because you can find some similar, but most of them are kind of mass produced. And if you look at custom spears, you can see really, really cool different designs that people come up with. But I do like this design because it's more simplistic looking and there's a lot more you can do with it. Scary thought. Oh yeah. Mhm. So at Linder, we use what's called structural welds, which is a weld that is the same size as the thickness of the material. So in order to do that, you don't just butt two pieces of metal together. You have to put what's called a bevel on them, which is an angle. So if I was welding two 1 inch pieces of steel together, I'd put a 1/2 inch bevel on each side, which is just a 1/2 inch all the way down to the edge. And I'd put what's called a backer plate on, which is just a 1/4 inch piece of steel. And then I'd have to fill that entire bevel. And a structural weld should be able to be as strong or stronger than the material you are welding to. And how you test that is what's called a weld test to get certified. You would weld a inch plate and then you'd send it into a place. They would cut your weld and or they'd cut the whole plate in half, see how much welding penetration you have, and then they stick it in a hydraulic press and they twist it and bend it. And your weld should never be what is cracked or broken. And 1 square inch of weld can hold 10,000 pounds of weight. So I worked on a stair a few weeks ago. It had over 35 miles of welding wire put into it. That stair could probably hold tens of millions of pounds. There was so much weld into that stair. Custom handle, a wooden handle for this, and I probably wouldn't do much else different. I really like the way it turned out, and I've kind of gotten used to the different welding positions because he had a different TIG welder than I was used to. He has one that is a strike one, so you have to tap it on the metal for it to work. Most other TIG welders are a pedal driven, so just like driving a car is the more you put down, the more amps you put into it, which is a lot more of what I'm used to. So it was definitely a learning curve trying to use that, but I think the only thing I'd change is a wooden handle. I'd hire someone else to do the 4-strand braid. I'm sorry, what? We technically lost one to a crack. One tradesman did chip a piece of glass, and then we had one that came in cracked, so it wasn't our fault. It was the glass company, so we got another free piece of glass from them. And then we had one or two that didn't fit properly, so we had to reorder. So I think we only had to reorder 5 pieces of glass, which is pretty good for 65 pieces of glass. For like welding wise, pretty much all we do at Linder is mild steel. Occasionally we work with stainless. I've never personally welded stainless because it's kind of a whole different game. It's a lot thicker, it's a lot denser, and you need more heat. But so pretty much just mild steel is really easy to weld. You get into cast any steel or stainless or aluminum, it kind of sucks. I did it on different types of welders, and welding careers, and who put a patent on those welders first. So it's kind of just the history of welding. You know, this one wasn't rushed. I wasn't leaving for the airport at 3 in the morning the next day. Ella, finish my second spear, which I already plan on doing. I have a second spear I'm gonna build with a custom wooden handle. I wanted one without a custom handle and one with. Anyone else? Yes.
Stan. Oh. Okay. I did, but not with this. Yes. When you introduced me?
Check, check, check. Hello, everyone. Take another 30 seconds, get some lemonade, a refreshment, and we're going to begin our next presentation. All right, as you're settling in, I'm just going to make a note, a reminder in case you just trickled in. We are live streaming this tonight to millions across the globe. It is on, you can find the link for anyone who might be interested. It's on Facebook, which is a real thing that I believe exists, but I don't know how to get to it. Maybe you do. Check it out. And a shout out to Noah Many back there who's working the camera and the sound. Let's give him a quick round of applause. All right. The time has come. My name is Paul Jagger, and our next presenter is Dylan Gustafson-Sundell. I remember seeing a project Dylan did in 6th grade, and I was completely blown away, and I thought, I would really love to have that student join my advisory. And I got really lucky, and it worked out that way. And there's kind of always been this thing with Dylan where we've always been excited to see what Dylan is going to do next. And there'll be this buzz with staff here where they just kind of want to know what Dylan's cooking up. And with good reason, because she cooks up the best stuff. And it's impossibly difficult. She has this standard of excellence for herself that boggles my mind. She takes on these difficult things like making a short film and having it screened on the big screen at a film festival, or directing or co-directing a play. And she does all these really complicated things that involve collaboration, which to me seems like just a huge headache. And Dylan somehow finds a way to bring joy into all of those really complicated and difficult things. And she shares it with everyone who gets to be involved in her life. And I just have been so fortunate to work with Dylan the last 6 years. And all of a sudden, we're here in this moment, and you're about to present your senior project, which is crazy. Um, I'm so excited for the next chapter. I'm so excited for what comes next with you. And I'm really curious. There's just going to be this moment when you're at college or you're working in the industry and you're going to be talking about a country school that you came from. And you're going to have to answer the question, what the heck is a country school? And I'm really curious how you're going to answer that question. And I'm really excited about it. Oh, shoot. This is kind of awkward timing for a phone call. Sorry, I just have to take this. Hey, Dua. Yeah, this isn't a good time. Um, it's Dylan. Yeah, she's going to start her presentation. You're watching. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. But I really need to get off the phone. Okay. You want me to relay a message to Dylan? Okay. Yeah. Dua Lipa says good luck.
Oh.
All right, see you. Up next is Dylan Gustafson-Sundell. Here you go.
Hi, my name is Dylan Gustafson-Sundell. What's yours? Nice, I like it. Welcome to my senior project on filmmaking and playwriting. You might be wondering, why did I choose this project out of all the projects I could have done? because I've always believed that students here should do projects based on what they're passionate about. And I'm passionate about film, making them, writing them, watching them. And I wanted my senior project to delve into the field I'd like to enter after graduation. In other words, my dream. But let me give you a short preface to this project before we get into it. My junior project was filmmaking, specifically making short films to fluff my portfolio and get me into a film school, but nonetheless, filmmaking. And my sophomore project, filmmaking. And before that, in seventh grade, a series of what could be short films if you squint while wearing rose tinted glasses. And in sixth grade, baby's first short film. Unless you count my videos from elementary school, those of recording dolls and those made in Gotcha Life. But record scratch, let's go to the start of this project. I knew it would be repetitive to do a third filmmaking project in a row, but I knew it was what I needed to do to have the skills I'd like to have after graduation. So when I was brainstorming what my senior project would be, I knew two things I just had to do. One, make more films. I needed the practice, and I love making short films. By this time, I had made over 5, with each taking a lot of work, but my progress was rapid and visible, and it was worth it, so I knew I needed another year of it. And 2, write a 2-act play. Last year, as a junior, for my community piece, I wrote a 1-act play, which I co-directed with the since graduated Lilybell Foley. And in the midst of the adrenaline high that hit after our singular performance, I declared that in my senior year, I'd co direct and write another play for my community piece. But this time, I would have 2 acts, and we'd have lights and better sound, and a real set, bigger and better. So I held myself to that this year. But I also had a third goal for this year. I wanted to enjoy the year, the time I have with my friends and in this school. So, with all this excitement for the year and my project, I was ready to jump right in and, yeah, struck down by health issues. Now, of all times, this is the school calendar. Roughly, this is the time I missed 2 whole months. I was in every now and again, but I was gone more than that. It was the worst start to my senior year when all I wanted to do and all I had looked forward to all summer was getting to work and graduating. This put me in a time crunch. But while I was out of school, I could still brainstorm ideas for my products. One of my ideas was recording behind the scenes footage of the play and editing it into a mockumentary with its own fictional storyline. 2 creative birds with 1 stone. I did not end up doing this. As the play ended up being all time consuming, another idea was finally making a short film I've titled The Easy Fix, which has been through so many different changes and so many different ideas and characters. I did not make it, but I'd like to this summer. So I returned to an idea that had been consuming my mind all the summer before this year that I had first conceived a few years ago, this being Aglaka. A few years ago, I was in a book group where we read a translation of the classic Old English tale Beowulf and the 20th century novel Grendel, a book from the perspective of Grendel, a monster that the hero Beowulf has to fight. This book is essentially fan fiction. The word Aglaka is an Old English word which is used in the original Old English of Beowulf to refer to Beowulf himself as a ferocious fighter, but it's also used to describe Grendel as a miserable being. When I learned that the word Aglak is used for both of the 2 enemies, I knew it was the perfect title for a drawn short film about them that I had been dreaming up. A short film from the perspective of Grendel that explored their similarities, to the point that one word with vastly different meanings perhaps has very similar meanings and goes both ways. My concept of Aglak as a short film was inspired by beloved mythological animated childhood movies and the fairy tale books I lived by. Here is some of the concept art I drew for Aglaka. You'll have to bear with my sketches. They're rough and messy, but once again, they're just concepts. This is my design for Grendel himself. I like the idea of him having taken the face off of a statue and wearing it as a mask so that the miserable wretch could feel or appear more human. This is Grendel's mother, another monster that Beowulf must fight. She's supposed to be a water troll, and I wanted to honor that. This is Beowulf himself, a Geatish warrior who is completely unstoppable. I wanted him to be monstrous himself in the sheer unhuman physicality he wields. And lastly, this is King Hrothgar, whose hall has been terrorized by Grendel. I designed other characters, but these are the only ones I'm showing here. I did not end up making a GLACA this year because after being gone for about 2 months, I didn't want the rest of my year to be spent just making this. As a drawn short film, it would be a pit that time is sucked into, so a GLACA was put on the back burner, though I'd like to return to it this summer. Almost 2 years ago, I made a short film adaptation of the Greek myth of Eros and Psyche. It is the short film that has stuck with me the most. At the beginning of this school year, I was thinking about it a lot and how I would do it differently now, but I couldn't possibly do a remake, right? I never like when Hollywood reboots a franchise, and what if by doing a remake, I'd be completely unoriginal unless it would make a good comparison and a portfolio for film schools to show how much my work has changed in just over a year. Thus, the idea was validated, and I began to work on it. I had one big issue with the idea, however. In the original Eros and Psyche, we shot it in a friend's house and mostly in his parents' bedroom during nighttime, which meant she had to sleep on the couch downstairs. We all felt bad about it, and I didn't want to repeat that. So I brought the idea of a reboot to Liz Dimock, my often collaborator who played Psyche in the original. She jokingly suggested that she has family in Denver, Colorado, who have a large house that fit the aesthetic we imagined for the reboot. So I took her up on her joke and we went to Denver. Of course, it wasn't as simple to organize as it sounds just by saying we went there, like it was completely spontaneous. But it was mostly spontaneous. We got the permissions of parents, and every kid who went paid for their own plane ticket. Liz and myself put together these notes for the first parent meeting, where we were terrified of how our crazy excitement and ideas would be perceived, and I was worried we wouldn't be able to go at all. But go we did. A small group of myself and some friends as my cast and crew, and Aaron Dimock, Liz's father, was our chaperone who ended up providing insightful advice during filmmaking for props and such. Solveig Audius was our singular crew member. She was given the microphone I had bought a week before we left for Denver and quickly learned how to wield it. Liz Dimock reprised the role of Psyche, which, now being rewritten with much more current and frankly better writing skills, could finally be a role she deserved. Ethan Rain was a first-time actor and blew us all away with his Eros, first-time actor in a starring role. And Elijah Horvat filled in last minute for the role of Epopsia, Psyche's little brother, after the original actor had to drop out of the trip. Elijah had to quickly learn his lines and secure a plane ticket and such. The trip lasted from November 14th to the 16th, and I'm pretty sure we only ever went to 2 places in Denver because we were so busy filming the whole time. But here is my synopsis for Eros and Psyche. A human girl, Psyche, has been taken by a mysterious man she can't even see and now lives contained in his home. Her discontent grows as he loses his interest in her that made him steal her away. When Psyche's brother, Epopsia, visits as a gift from her mysterious partner, he spreads his distrust and suspicion of the man to her. Eventually, in a betrayal of the man's trust, she learns that he is the god of love, Eros. This short film will hopefully release soon on YouTube now that I have the time to edit it together because I was launched into play work as soon as we got back from Denver. But how do you make a short film? Here are the steps that I take when I make one. I start with coming up with ideas, either by writing them down in a Google Doc or in my notes app. This can be everything from names to plot points to dialogue to specific shots I want and how I want to color grade it. Then I write the screenplay. I normally go through a few drafts before the final screenplay, but even the final can be edited in the midst of filming for last minute decisions. Let me give you some screenwriting terms. However, if you actually want to learn how to screenwrite, there are books and videos aplenty to teach you. I won't be diving deep enough for even a basic lesson here. The line that has just been underlined is a slug line. That means that it's the line telling us where and when we are in this scene. This slug line starts with INT, so we're in the interior of Eros's dwelling, and specifically we're in his living room, and the time is later, which means in this case that this scene is later in time than the scene right before it. The new underlined line here is an action line. All of this stuff between slug lines and dialogue are action lines. They are the action of the film. They tell us what is happening. In this case, Epopsia is flipping through Psyche's sketchbook without her permission. Here we can see who's delivering the dialogue. Right now, Psyche is speaking. Lastly, the dialogue itself, Psyche is saying, no, that's just, okay. Hope you got all that because there's a pop quiz after this. Then you'll probably want to get some actors to play the roles in your screenplay. I typically work with my friends as they're some of the most skilled and creative people I know. But like I did here, feel free to reach out to people you don't really know. Or if you don't want to make a short film like a high school student, be normal and have your casting person hold auditions. And you'll want to be ready for filming by having all of the costumes and props that are needed. Personally, I use a Sony handheld camcorder to film that I typically put on a tripod. I make a shot list before I film, but I do it in an excessively convoluted way that isn't how you're supposed to do it, so I'm not going to teach my bad habits to all of you. I think, however, that shooting each shot multiple times is a good habit for the sake of getting the best shot you can in the final edit. I edit in a program called Shotcut, which I found reliable for years. Once again, plenty of tutorials out there. I'm not doing that here and now, but I recommend Shotcut if you're looking for an editing software. Now let's transition suddenly into my community piece, which is how it felt as soon as I got back from Denver. I knew that I wanted to write a 2-act play, but I had zero ideas for it. I started to talk with Evalyn Specht, a friend who has acted in several of my short films, until I came to the idea that I wanted to write a play set in the Middle Ages. All that came of it was a Google Doc full of ideas and a Pinterest board. But here's what could have been. This nameless medieval play was about a version of medieval England where people were spontaneously transforming into animals and no one knew the cause. Our protagonist, an accused witch on the run, realizes a curse is at fault and must save everyone by ending it. We wanted the protagonist, Bathilde Laurent, the accused witch, to be played by Liz Dimock. Of course, there were several other characters planned out, like Sir Pengrec Filius Madfall, a knight and the lesser-known cousin to King Arthur, who is certainly a failure and a scallywag when compared to him, and who transforms into a newt as punishment for the curse, for the crimes he has committed, and becomes known as the Newt Knight. So there were some good ideas here and there, but this play idea was scrapped when I heard some particularly melancholy jazz playing from the radio one day, and it suddenly came to me that I needed to write a play about a man that listens to melancholy jazz. And thus I wrote the 105 pages that are the 2-act play Last Night for a Spy. This poster was made by Liz Dimock, actually, but anyway, here's the author's note. I put in the script and the playbill. This is a farce. Last Night for a Spy is a farce about spies, satirizing the spy films of the 1960s like those of James Bond. This show is meant to be a comedy with an emotional heart that manages to show occasionally. At its deepest core, this is a piece about growing up, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. But beyond that, it's a play about a spy named Lance Flint, who is a James Bond with imposter syndrome and who really isn't as cool as he thinks he is. But how do you make a play? It's definitely a different process from making a short film. Just like with films, you'll want to start with having concepts that you can write a script from. Writing a play is different, though. The style is different. The comedy is typically more obvious, and there's far more dialogue than action. To prepare for the play, so much more had to be done. Auditions were held for the roles. Rehearsals went on for weeks. The crew people had to build every set in 1 week. And our light person and sound person each had to learn their job in a single day. It was hectic and horrible at times, but always rewarding to see my characters and their world be brought to life. We had 2 performances. The first was on April 10th from 5 to 7 p.m. It was essentially just an embellished tech rehearsal. The audience couldn't hear much of what was said by the actors, and everything went kind of rough. We were so happy to get to do it again and do it better. So everyone rocked it during the second and final performance on April 11th from 2:30 to 4:30. The audience heard everything and they were entirely receptive. The audience during the second performance was so loud, cheering and laughing and reacting to everything, that the actors really got into it. There was a relationship between the actors on stage and the audience watching, so if the audience isn't receptive, it is hard to act for them. And we ended up in the newspaper. We were on the front page of the Henderson Independent. Having my face in color on the front of a newspaper was insane, but even more insane was reading an article about my play. The thought that people have really seen my work to the point that they can write an article about it. That's a very special thought and feeling. I talked to people after the second performance who had favorite characters and who were sad about one of the character deaths in the play. That's shocking to me. That something I wrote can resonate with someone like a play written by an actual adult playwright. I am so grateful for this experience and for getting to work with every single person involved. For those of you who didn't see the play live but would still like to see it, it will be up on my YouTube soon, probably after Eros and Psyche. Because of how busy I was with the triple combo of health issues, Eros and Psyche, and a full play, I haven't finished my research paper yet. But don't worry, it's on its way. The title of it is A plunge into polar exploration, Franklin's Lost Expedition. It's about the expedition led by Sir John Franklin in 1845 to discover the Northwest Passage. Two ships went and neither discovered it and neither ever made it home. I first heard of the topic when in 2024 a jawbone was found on King William Island that once belonged to Captain James Fitzjames. The mandible showed signs of cannibalism, as it seems the men of the two ships, the HMS Terror and the HMS Erebus, which are horrible names if you want your mission to go well, became stranded somewhere above Canada. But anyway, moving right along from this gruesome subject, my first community expert on this project is Adelaide, the founder and director of the theater company Drunk Lady Productions. I reached out to her over Instagram and interviewed her via text. She was kind and lovely, and I can't believe I got to speak to her. Drunk Lady Productions works with a lot of popular LA-based comedians that I admire. I always like to believe that celebrities are just people. So if you reach out, maybe they'll answer, and maybe that's a new awesome connection. So this was really cool for me. And my other community expert was Cassian Grove, the vice president of Star House Amateur Theater Company, which is based in San Francisco. I've supported their original musicals for a few years now, purchased a soundtrack here and there. They responded this morning to me, so I quickly interviewed them over email. Both Starhouse and Adelaide were excited to talk, which just goes to show how artists, often enough, like to pass on their craft or help the younger generations. There's a definite community aspect to art. Where am I going after this? Well, I'd imagine that I'm probably just going to go home tonight, probably just going to want to chill out. Oh, you're wondering what I'm going to do after graduation. Well, I was accepted into my dream school, DePaul University, which is in Chicago. It offers everything I want for pursuing film, and they offered me their top scholarship, which I accepted. I joked around a lot on the set of Eros and Psyche that they were going to get me into college, and they did. Okay, before I wrap this up, I need to shamelessly plug my YouTube channel. The channel name is Delandi Kenobi, which you can see the spelling of on the screen. I am not asking for subscribers or for you to like and comment. I am not asking for engagement or to make my account successful. I don't want to be a YouTuber. I'm just using the platform as a place to offer my short films to the public that is interested. So if you want to watch any of my short films from my sophomore or junior years, here you go. Or if you want to stay on the lookout for Eros and Psyche or the pro shot of Last Night for a Spy, this is the way to go. And this is my Letterboxd account. It's under the same name. This is where I post movie reviews. If you want to hear what I have to think, go ahead. I would like to take some time here to thank you, the audience, for sitting through all of this. My parents and my advisor, Paul, who are my constant support, my allies, and my reality checks. Aaron Dimock for chaperoning and organizing the Denver trip. Susan Cobb Frederick and John Frederick for graciously allowing a short film to be made by mostly strangers in their house. All of my friends, the people I love. It's important to have people you care about that care about you. And honestly, most of them have been involved in my projects over the years. Every cast and crew member of Eros and Psyche and Last Night for a Spy. I'm going to go quickly through the first names here. Solveig, Liz, Ethan, Elijah, Evalyn, Zane, Sana, Palin, Darren, Jackson, Ben, Juliet, Charlie, Max, Leif, Lauren, Olivia, Althea, Lulu, Bryson, Kai, Ray and Fritz, Emily, Reagan, and Carter. And thank you to the icon that is Lady Adelaide of Drunk Lady Productions, and to Star House Amateur Theater, the visionaries of what modern musicals can be. And thank you to every actor that has played James Bond. And I'm including Kurt Mega, even though he only played him in parody. And finally, a begrudging thank you to Slides Carnival for this template. And now, with this long presentation out of the way, I am open to questions. Yeah. Ooh. Favorite director, I say Wes Anderson a lot, but it's kind of also Damien Chazelle. Favorite movie trope, I like dance scenes in movies that are not musicals. Like if someone's just dancing for one whole scene, I want it. I want that to happen. Like a dream ballet. Yeah. Mhm. Well, I've always admired those that feed into like hyper stylization of their film worlds, like Baz Luhrmann movies where they're just sparkly and bright the whole time and go quickly. I think that's lovely. I don't think enough people do that. Unfortunately, I haven't done anything like that yet. And I've been told by a lot of people that commonly I seem to write stories about relationships between people or dynamics between humans and how we interact. But I'd like to build up to stylization. Um, I think that would be cool. Yeah. hmm Yes. Absolutely. As a farce, I wrote a lot of scenes that I really wanted the audience to laugh at. And there's one scene that everyone in the cast and crew referred to as the milkshake scene. Yeah, we got some reactions from them where two characters share and drink a milkshake very awkwardly, where one has requested a milkshake to be made for her and the other character secretly slips in a second round. It's like, well, maybe there's two of us here and there's one milkshake, so it just seems like the way this is gonna go. And it was really nice to see the audience react to that, and also the entrance of a character, Dion S. Codwell, who enters to music and to a lot of lights turning on, a lot of brightly colored lights. And the second night, the whole audience cheered at the appearance of a teenage girl with a drawn on handlebar mustache. And that's awesome. That's theater. Yeah. I think that with theater, people feel like they can use their imagination while watching it. They can see cardboard with waves drawn on it and say, yes, that we are on a dock, there is water there. They can see a bright light and say, we are looking at a lighthouse. If you're watching a film, people typically want to see exactly what is supposed to be happening. So, working as a low budget minor with interests in film, it is hard to have a range of what I can do. It's very limiting in what I can make because people take it as it appears. While with plays, I can do anything, and people are just willing to stretch for it. Yeah. Any scenes? Um, I would say do the random dance scene in the middle of something, but I did that in Eros and Psyche. I'm repetitive. Yeah. There will never be more Lance Flint. I am not allowing myself to do any more remakes after remaking Eros and Psyche. Yeah, she is. Yeah. Um, I have some short film ideas. I have an idea for a concept album for a musical. Um, but I have a lot of stuff I want to work on over the summer. I have several short films I want to get to. I want to get back to Aglaka. I want to finally make the easy fix that has been through so much over the years. Let it out. Anyway, so I have like a, a list in my Google Keep notes with a ton of things I want to make this summer. Yeah. I would prefer writing. I think it would feel weird to direct someone else's work in a way because I'm not in the headspace they were in. And I know it's creative collaboration, but I especially think it's weird in situations where a person's script is sent to you and you never meet them and then you have to direct their script. I think that's odd, and I'd much rather be able to write my own stories and have more talented directors deliver them for me. Yeah. Absolutely, film. Film is my passion. Plays were a good way to get practice much easier in high school for writing and working with other people in a form that is similar to film. But I would love to write more plays someday and have them produced and made. But films are my main goal. Yeah. Um, I have some feature film concepts in the back of my mind that I'm not allowing myself to think too much about. Some that I've been waiting for years to do. Even if I make a Glack over the summer, it is not what I could dream of it being because it's me. I'm not a professional artist. I'm not a team of animators, which is the dream for it. But I do have some like passion feature films in my back pocket that we'll get to someday. Yeah. Um, Okay, honestly, at first it was just because a person I know in the film industry was like, "Hey, this place is pretty cool," and I was like, "Oh, okay." But then I started looking into it, and it was like on the top 20 film school lists, um, and it's appeared pretty high on a few lists. And I know that Chicago is the second biggest place to go to if you want to enter the film industry in America, other than LA. And I don't want to go to California, so I'm going to Chicago. I like Chicago a lot, and it just sounded like a good way to enter the industry, a good school, good environment. Anthony.
Project that I remember watching, doing it actually like it made me cry. And I was gonna say it did. Yeah.
Thank you. I remember hearing that when I was in sixth grade. It made me more excited to go into the high school. I can't stand my project from sixth grade. I think it's really bad, but I love that for you. But don't hunt it down. I took it off YouTube. Yeah.
You don't have to go up there yet. Or are you just gonna plug in? We'll give you a couple of minutes just to get settled. Like Paul had said about the refreshments, go help yourself quickly, and then we'll get started with the next presentation. Our next presenter, so Alex Santovi came into my advisory this year. And I just found out something today for the first time that I was like, "How long have you been here, Alex?" And he said 4 years. And I said, "Was it you?" I remember his older brother. So because of Alex, I kind of owe him a big thank you because half of my advisory for the last what 3 years has been Santovi's, and it's all because of him. So I guess I'll just thank him for that. But I'm really proud that he's worked as hard as he has on this senior project, and he's shown a lot of growth over the time that I've known him. So I'll just say, good luck. You're gonna do this.
I'll need it. Yeah, there you go. This is my presentation. If you want lots of friends, just get a trailer. It's a fantastic thing. This is my project on body restoration by me, Alexander Santovi. This is my table of contents. We'll go anywhere from what I did to my project to anything of during this project to future. This is my project. I started out with this trailer that you can see here. This is the trailer that started this entire thing. It looks very rough and kind of just out of place. Then you got the new, what it roughly looks like. I'm not going to show you what it looks like right now because you'll see that later throughout the rest of the presentation. You can see that it looks very rough. There's holes and just a lot of rust to take off. Why did I do this project? This was a great learning experience, and I really loved the amount of work I got to put into it. It was long at times, but I really enjoyed it. I was looking to get a lot of different experience out of this entire project and just learning a lot of new things. This project offers a lot of career opportunities. You can do auto body with sandblasting, which I've done a lot of in this past couple months. You got electrical with wiring and a lot of other things that I'm not going to go too much into detail about. I also did this project for personal repair reasons. I wanted to learn how to do all this stuff for my own, just if I get a trailer, you know? I want to be able to know this stuff and understand how these things work. My trailer. Why this project? This project was sitting at my grandparents' for probably about 10 years, maybe more. It's very rusty. You can see that there's a lot of just WD-40 that I had to use. These bolts did not come off very easily. It sat for a long time and took a lot of effort for me to do. Before I did this project, it was rusty. As you can see, there's a piece of rust just falling off. That just came straight off the trailer in a whole piece. There's a lot of rust bubbles everywhere and just a mess of everything. You can see in that very top picture, that's what it looked like before. It was brown. It's supposed to be black. That's its original paint. And I was pretty successful with this. First, I started with board removal. So you can see I'm using an ankle grinder. The reason I'm using an ankle grinder to take off these boards is because I could not use an impact or a drill. Those bolts were too rusted in there for me to do anything with. I had to grind off the top of each and every single one of those screws and then pull off the boards with anything I could, strength, anything. You can see that there's a bunch of drill bits. Those I all got for free, and I used them to take out all of the screws. There was some that were still stuck in the board and the beams, and I had to pull them off so that way I could get a nicer finish. In the very last picture that's attached to the vehicle, you can see that's all the rust and wood that fell off of the trailer when I was taking those boards off. It was a mess in that shop and it smelled like burning wood. Wasn't the greatest thing, but I went through it. Next, I moved to wiring and siding. There's a diagram of where the wire roughly went. That is not accurate to where the wire is supposed to go, but it's close enough, so I just used it. You can see the very bottom there. That's the old wire. That is probably as long as two of me stacked on top of each other. Could be longer. You can see that another ankle grinder. This ankle grinder was used throughout this entire project. Was my favorite thing to use? Not really. And you can see the fenders. That's what I was working on. The very back of that photo, there's a fender missing. I grinded that off and took it off because I needed to replace those anyways. In the front of that picture, you can see there's a bunch of different holes sitting in that, and you could take your finger and just push right through it. It wasn't supportive. Next, I did sandblasting. This is the longest part of my project. It took me a long time to get here, and this is the most time consuming thing I had to do. There's a before and after. It's a rough estimate of what it looks like. I'll have another one later. But you can kind of see what it looked like before and after. That's what progress was done on the trailer when I sandblasted it. There was a lot of different things that took so much time for me to do, and I couldn't really see when I was sandblasting either. That shop was filled with sand everywhere. In that top picture, you can see sand sitting on a flatbed trailer. You might be asking, why is that there? That's there because sand, when it's on the ground, it collects moisture and condensation off the ground because it's cold. So it tends to get stuck and clogged in the hopper of the sandblaster and causes me to take 30 minutes, maybe more, sitting there trying to fix it. So I learned that later in the project, and I wish I knew that sooner. In the very top corner there, you can see that is an air dryer. It collects water from the air compressor and takes it, holds it into a little container, and then goes out to the end. That helped me a lot throughout this entire project. It allowed me to sandblast for an hour, maybe 2 hours straight without stopping. It helped me a lot to just keep going and push through this entire project. You can see this is another sandblasting slide continued. You've got sand everywhere. That's after about 30 minutes of sandblasting, that sand just ends up everywhere on the ground. You can see with my hand sitting there, that is how much sand I collected after 30 minutes. It's not everything because it's really hard to clean up. It doesn't come out. So, in the picture down here and the one up here, you can see it's a better representation of what it looks like. You can see the black in the paint and then the clear. That's what it looked like before I even touched it and then after. If you look at this little nozzle right here, there's a little divot in it. It caused the sandblaster to not work and just spit out sand. It stopped me from making any progress, and I had to replace that along with a few other things on the sandblaster nozzle. After, what I want it to look like is roughly that. It's not exact, but I want it to look close. I still have to paint, which is mostly done. I'm still got to do a couple different things, rewire and replace the boards. It still takes me a lot of time to do, and I'm still planning on finishing this project. It's not done yet, but I'd like to. This is my community expert. His name was Kalen. He works at Jordan Central Trailers. I found him by just calling the place. He ended up being the person I talked to first, and he really helped me a lot throughout this project. I talked to him about 4 times and met with him a few more. I've bought a few things from him. I've spent in total roughly $200 that I bought parts from him. I got U-bolts. I possibly will be buying wiring, fenders. I still have a lot more stuff I have to buy from him. My community piece was Derek. His farm needed a lot of help, and I got to help him restore a hay rack. That is what it looked like before. It was falling off the base of the entire thing and just ruined. I had to help him fix that, drill holes, and replace the middle board. Then, in that middle picture, I was having a lot of fun that day. I really enjoyed it. I got to sit in a bobcat and move around wood that was destroying his pasture for his cows. I got to cut down trees. I learned how to do that. I got to use a T-Rex arm that I never knew how to use before this, and I really enjoyed it. I got to learn a lot, and I had fun while doing it. My project reflection, what I learned, everything this entire project, this was all an experience for me. I didn't know how to sandblast before this. I barely used an ankle grinder. It was a lot of different things. I learned how to take apart electric brakes. I was annoyed by that. It took a while. I know how to do it efficiently now. Sandblasting, that was one of my main struggles. It took me forever. Another struggle was time management. I really struggled with time because of winter and everything else. It caused me to not work, and I really got down to probably about last 5 months is how long I've been working on this project. It's not very long. Things that went well during this project, though, I had a few things went well. It was a very long project and a lot of things wrong with the trailer. But overall, the things that went well was the learning experience and the time I spent with my dad working on this thing. I really enjoyed working with my dad, and I still do. He really helps me throughout this entire thing, and I'm glad he was there for that. My future plans, I've got some summer plans to work at ROC, which is Ricky Ocelot Construction. I plan to work there before I go to college to make money to hopefully not have student loans. I don't want to have student loans, but I might. That brings me into where I go for college. I'm going to go to Duluth for about a year, and then I'm going to go to North Dakota for the last 3 years of my college. That also brings me partially into my career interest. The reason I'm going to North Dakota is for pilots. I want to become a commercial pilot. I want to fly the planes, and I want to do that. The reason I'm doing that over anything else is it's less backbreaking, but I still need to know how to do these things because I really enjoy it. I want to give a thank you to Anthony, my advisory, for just keeping me on track this year and helping me the best he could to help me with anything I needed. I want to thank Megan, my case manager, for helping me with everything that I did throughout this year, papers, just writing in general. She helped me a lot with all of my papers and even this presentation. I want to thank my mom and dad for helping me with this project, getting materials I needed, and just keeping me on track. I want to thank Diane for helping me with future plans and job interests that I went into. I want to thank Kalen, my community expert, for allowing me to use him and get resources from him. I want to thank Derek for allowing me to use his farm as my community piece. And also, he helped me a lot during this project. He helped me grind and take pictures for me. I want to thank senior team for letting me use this project and just keep me on track during this year. Any questions? Before I take questions, I just want to let you know my trailer is outside. I'll take a few questions in here and then we'll go outside and go look at the trailer. I'll take more questions. Hmm. Not really. It's a pain. It hurts too. Being able to use it at the end. Just having a nice trailer and if I want to sell it, I can.
So you talked about learning just for learning's sake.
Mm.
Would you do things like this again in the future? Like, and then another side question is, I've sandblasted before, but only in like an enclosed space. I've never done it in a big space. Are you able to reuse the sand? Like, I don't know in a large space. Can you access it?
So, yes, I was actually able to reuse that sand. I was in an enclosed building. It's bigger. I had to tarp off a lot of my areas to keep it from going onto shelves and different things. But I ended up using a lot of that sand over because I only bought 3 bags. So I reused as much sand as I possibly could to keep going with that project. And I had to use 2 bags at one time, one to dry and one to just use at the time. What was your first question? Yeah, no, I would definitely do this again. My sophomore project was restoring my car that I bought. I bought that car and restored it and was able to drive it. So I would definitely keep doing this as any future job or anything. Any other questions?
Was there another part you dislike?
How much work it took to take off the bolts? That or how scary it was to take off the springs off the electric brakes. Okay, we'll head outside. That back door is where we'll go. And that's where my trailer's at. I'll take more questions out there.
First. Oh, there we go. Oh my God. So, do they purposefully make a mic that squeezes just your temples? Okay. Good to know. Yeah. Wait. Upside down?
I've seen her. No, she's. Oh, this is a lot more comfortable. Yeah, I know. Check, check. Oh, no spoilers. Unlike some people, I don't scroll on Pinterest at school. No.
Say nice things.
Oh, sure.
I'll try.
Don't make me cry. I said, don't make me cry. I can't cry before. Okay, fine. I just can't look at this part of the audience or that part of the audience. Just stare at Nat. Yeah. But my grandpa's watching. I need to like scooch this. Scooch this. Sit right there. Hopefully that shouldn't.
Some point.
Yes. No. I mean, they're all here tonight.
You can just have them come up.
Yeah, the whole time.
Or you can just go like the Tom Holland. Like they'd like to bring revenge. They can't mess with you tonight.
Mm-hmm. What? Who?
Yeah. Wow, the gym looks a lot more woolly than when I first started eating.
He's quite woolly.
I got the big Lebowski thing going on over there. Is he doing that on purpose?
I think a little. He has a big framed poster of the Big Lebowski at his house.
That's like
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's just because I'm not presenting yet. I'll move it back in.
You're not on.
I turned it on.
Safety.
Bean.
What's his name?
The dog's name is Bean, and I don't know. They have attachment issues. The human has attachment issues, not the dog.
We're going to get started here in a minute, so start working your way to your place of comfort.
My mom's still not sitting down. Just, yeah. Stop it. I'm just gonna stand right here. Look down.
All right, I'm going to try and make it through this without getting emotional. So yeah, there's a bittersweet nature to this because somewhere around 15 years ago, I met with this family from Nebraska that was emailing me about the notion of an elementary school that we were starting. So first off, thanks to Aaron and Becky for making that email, for let me work with your kids for all these years. So after that email, I said, yeah, come on up to Henderson from Nebraska. talk about this thing that isn't even a thing yet. And so we met right over there, and there was 3 kids. 2 of them were at the table. One of them was crawling around underneath the table. So we started a school. And the next year, I got to start working with Jonah, and then Katie showed up, and then Liz showed up. So for 12 years, I've gotten to teach a Dimock, and that means something. So watching Liz go from crawling into the table to like somehow somebody trusted with being a substitute teacher in kindergarten. I've done that twice. That shouldn't happen. And Liz kept telling on, I don't know if Brad's still here, but Liz kept telling on Brad and maybe Miles for doing these. Like they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Ironically, moving into like 8th grade, oftentimes you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. To now, this self-regulated person who has brought a tremendous amount of culture to our school, to our advisory, expectations, leadership, being a mentor, and making my job easier. Super proud of you. And it was really cool. I got asked to be in the play, so right over there on the stage, Liz and I got to do a scene together. And one of the lines in that play was, "And it's spring, Liz." I'll alter it a little bit. The weather's getting nice. You should go out and get into it. So think about life right now as your springtime. You're going to leave Edmonds, yes. The weather's nice. Go out and enjoy it. Straight out of North Mankato, Minnesota, Liz Dimock.
Check, check. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my senior presentation, 13 years in the making. I am Elizabeth Dimock, and this is my senior project illustrating a graphic novel. So diving right in, my project is many, many, many things, but primarily I was illustrating a graphic novel called A Knight in Shining Plaster. It stars a girl, Cass, and a boy, Eli, and they adventure across the continents to see the dragon migration. It centers around themes of mental health and friendship, and it's a subversion of the fairy tale trope of saving a princess locked in a tower. The whole thing actually started 5 years ago now. Back many, seems like way longer than 5 years at this point. I was talking to my friend and eventual co-author Maxwell Kelly, and I said that if I were a princess locked in a tower, I would not want to be saved. I would just want to befriend the dragon. This series has become incredibly important to me over these last 5 years, and especially this year. Books in general are so, so important, and they were so formative in my love of art and theater. So this is my love letter to storytelling, to books, and to art. So the world that Knight in Shining Plaster is set in is inspired by many different cultures. But where the main character is from, Vasilio, it's based on Greek mythology and Minnesota. To me, basing something on Minnesota meant basing it on Dakota, Lakota, and Anishinaabe cultures. So that is what my research focused on. Before I could start drawing at all, I did a bunch of research. So I reached out to 2 community experts, David Breezy from Jeffers Petroglyphs and Megan Volbear from Lakota Made. Both of them gave me so many amazing resources and books and just answered all of my endless questions about pre-colonial life in Minnesota. Specifically, they gave me this map by Marlena Miles. That was incredibly helpful. Um, So I needed to do a lot of research before drawing because I needed all of the context for the book. So I needed to know all of these little details, like what kind of food would they eat, what kind of fabric did they wear, what season would they wear that fabric in, and why did they wear that fabric, and all of these tiny little convoluted questions that they very graciously answered. Um, so the results of all of that is two of the pages of this notebook. Um, this picture here shows my conversation with Miss Fulbear and all of some of the little questions that I asked her and very quickly writing notes. And then the far picture there is what my process was for creating the language, because of course I had to add an extra layer of challenge to just illustrating. Um, so I would take Dakota words or Lakota words and meld it with Greek to kind of create my own little thing. And the result of all of that research turns into this. Now, this is a map that I made on my own based on Marlena Miles's illustration. And then that far picture over there, that is a screenshot of just a few of the words that I made and use in the series. When I say it's a fragment, I mean this is a very small amount of what I have. Um, so illustrating um, research was so important to my illustrating and character design, and it influenced a lot of my decisions in the characters, but only one, because we don't have all night. One that I'll point out is down there on her boot. There is a little bit of what's called quill work, which is a kind of embellishment that a lot of native cultures, but including Dakota and Lakota, use to embellish clothing and belongings. But the main part of this project was the illustrating, so I'll get onto that. Going into it, I didn't know what steps I was going to take. So I first needed to storyboard and then line art, background, and rendering. Pretty simple altogether. Um, so this is storyboarding. This is the beginning of so many different kinds of art and illustration. This is how it all began, this barest of barest sketches. What I would do, I had to take it from the script, more or less, and kind of write out what I thought the vision would be for what I've been imagining it would look like on the page. The main issue I had with this is me and my co-author had a few different ideas, and Max is in college now, so there's an hour and a half between us, and sometimes somebody doesn't actually know what a bay is, and that apparently is a huge part of this book somehow. And so there is some hurdles to jump there, but overall, pretty simple start. Then next was line art. Oh boy, this was the bulk of my project. Line art in itself is pretty self-explanatory. You outline what the focus of that panel is going to be on. This is where I vastly underestimated this project. Now, I did not go into this thinking, oh, I'm just gonna draw a whole graphic novel in 9 months. That would be crazy. That would be way too hard. I'll just do as much as I can. And then I started drawing line art, and it was about an hour per panel. There are 77 panels in the first chapter. So I was not prepared at all, but I am very proud of what I have been able to accomplish. I've grown a lot as an artist. The main thing I noticed, just staring at my own art for hours and hours on end, was I really solidified what my style was, and kind of the pictures in my head of what I wanted to look like started to look a little bit more like what I was actually drawing. So, in addition to getting better, um, oh, that's not quite what I meant to do. So, in addition to just getting better with illustration, I also got a lot more fluent with the drawing software I was using, because I only started using that in August, and I didn't know how to copy paste in it until like 3 months ago. So that would have cut out a lot of time of drawing very, very repetitive poses over and over again. So that was also something I've been getting a lot better with. Then coloring and background. Coloring you guys should all understand that. You color things, yes. Personally, I, of course, had to make it harder. I did a lot of background work before I started coloring. So this is something I made that shows what each main character in the story, each of them would have a signature color that I would use for their line art, or like their Cass's shirt is blue, her color is blue. It makes sense. Eli's color is green, and there's a whole different color story underneath there that I had to do before I started coloring everything. And then I showed my character pages in the beginning, and that also made everything a lot easier. Because I already knew what all of the colors were going to be. I could just drag and drop and fill in the very meticulous outlines that I did. So that did not actually take that much time at all. I thought it would take a lot more. For backgrounds, I did not do much besides what the characters directly interacted with, but this is one of the first things I ever drew on the new drawing software I started using, and it's part of why I actually got to do this project. I used it in my pitch. Um, so that was probably the main background that I did. Um, so the last step of the illustrating is rendering, which is not as self-explanatory as the other steps. So rendering is, like I said, you have the flat colors, and then rendering is the act of taking those flat colors and making it into a 3D illustration. It provides all the depth. So for this rendering, I put an overlay of the lighting, and then I would erase certain parts where like the lightning was to make it a brighter color than just plain white. So I used that very sparingly. And then the other trick with rendering, I had to, the picture on the far there that's Cass. So I had to render all of the skin and such, and that was a lot easier for me personally because of dance, which does not actually make any sense, but I will explain my thought process. It is you have your reds and your yellows and your blues to do all the shading and highlighting. And if you change that out with blush and highlighter and contour, pretty much the same steps in all honesty. But my favorite thing to draw was of course the dragon in the center there. That was my favorite. I drew that very last week before this presentation, and is my favorite illustration I've done so far. So besides all of that, I also had a community piece, which a few of you might have heard about a few times tonight. Last Night for a Spy was the school play this year, and not only did I act in it, I also helped direct it. So I chose to do some acting in it because it would be my career exploration. I don't have a ton of acting experience. In fact, almost all of my acting experience is thanks to Dylan Gustafson-Sundell for letting me be in her stuff. Um, so this was a really good way for me to experience what a school play would be like before heading off to college. So, very first step, I got to help create the character of Lance Flint, like all the background work and what's he like, what does he wear, maybe what color does he wear, how does he wear his hair, all of these little tiny details that kind of make him different than just, oh, well, he's kind of like James Bond. Um, so that was a very fun experience. Then after that, I had to read the show. I had to understand what I was getting into. I didn't write it, so after it was written, I had to kind of put him into the context of the show and understand him as the character, how he's going to react, why he's reacting this way, what all of it means. Not last step quite yet, but um, the biggest step was just gaining confidence. It was practicing lines over and over and over again, and practicing blocking and all of it over and over until I felt like I could actually do it in front of an audience. And trade secret, I never felt like I could actually do it in front of an audience, but I did. So um the actual last step would be to become the character. I had a lot of people coming up to me after performing saying, "Wow, how did you do that? How did you memorize all those lines? That must have been so hard." And I felt like a total fraud because I didn't memorize anything. The trick to acting is that you aren't pretending to be the character, you're becoming the character. I put on the blazer and the wig and the makeup, and it all made me into him. And that's how you act. I didn't memorize all of the lines because when a different character would say something to me, well, what would Lance Flint say in that situation? And it just flowed from there. Now, all of that, and then on top of that, I was also directing. So when I read the play, I also had to read it from a director standpoint. Luckily, I had an amazing, very talented group of friends to work with on this show. So I didn't have to do all of it alone, but it was a lot of thinking about, okay, what are the backdrops going to be? What are the characters going to be? How many characters do we have? What kids can be in these roles? What is our lighting and sound system? All of those little thoughts that I have to read not only for my character, but also as a director. So then I got to run auditions. I got to see all of the kids reading parts of the play for the very first time and start to envision them in all those roles. And besides seeing the performance, that was the most exciting part for me, honestly. It was amazing to get to see it from start to finish because all the kids grew so much in that time. Um, but I also have never directed literally anything before. So, on site experience for me, I also haven't had a lot of acting experience. So, I didn't know exactly how to teach them to act. So, that was something that I was learning how to do the whole time. And on top of that, I had to simultaneously be their castmate and their friend while being a director and almost like a teacher figure. There was a lot of talks that I had to lead of you guys need to be a little better behaved. You guys need to get to your rehearsals on time. You need to check the schedule. You need to check your emails, all of these things. So it was really hard for me to simultaneously do that and not make it feel like I was ruining the magic of theater for them. Um, because it is really magic. As soon as you get onto the stage and watch it all come together, it was such an amazing experience. And I'm so, so grateful I got to be a part of it, both behind the scenes and on stage. Um, Overall, the main things that I accomplished in this, getting to do this project. Um, so, Getting to do this project meant so much to me. This story is my passion. Cass, the main character, is everything I would have wanted to see in a protagonist growing up. And getting the chance to research Dakota, Lakota, and Anishinaabe cultures and all of the cultures that make up Minnesota was an amazing experience. And has been a huge goal of mine for years. I really wanted to learn about the roots of my home and not just know that Native people have suffered, but also know all of their joy and all of their culture and their food and just all of the things that make it so beautiful. Um, the other huge victory I had was I got to help the community. I've been here for 13 years, and I got to say that I am part of starting the MNCS theater program. And as someone who has had a lot of talks about, well, if you're going into theater, do you want to switch schools to a school that actually has a theater program? I am so happy that I got to be a part of making sure that other kids didn't have to make that decision and didn't have to try to squeeze in theater on their own time. Um, and that is a real legacy that I'm really happy to leave here. Um, I also have never shared my art before. I'm not super confident in it. I don't have a ton of art experience, and I have a long way to go before it's professional quality. But this is my first step, so thank you to be the first people I've majorly shared my art with. And then the thing I think Jim is the most happy about, I did my time logs. I know. No one thought that it would happen, but it did. In my last year, I actually did them this year. I did them for this project. I have probably 90% of the actual hours I put into the project into HeadRush logged right now. So that's pretty impressive for me. The things that didn't go quite as well as planned. So I definitely got a bit burnt out. Once spring started and it was the play and then dance and then archery and knowledge bowl. This last semester has been a little exhausting and I haven't had a ton of time to rest. So that has been a little difficult. And besides that, as I said, did not expect it to take so incredibly long to do line art. And I definitely thought I'd have more to show than just line art for one chapter, some of it colored in, which was definitely a little disappointing. Um, the main challenges I faced during this would definitely be learning a new drawing software. I started with Procreate about 2 years ago, and then I have been learning Metabang for the last year because it has a lot more tools and it's higher quality. Like it's closer to what an actual professional digital artist would use. So that was definitely a learning curve that I had to overcome. And then also balancing acting and directing. If I had to do it again, I definitely would have tried to focus a little bit more on my own work and my own character. And like, I didn't eat for the entire first show. I definitely would not do that again. Don't recommend. So being able to balance acting and directing a little bit better in the future would definitely be a goal of mine. Um, so overall, this year has been incredible. Um, as I said, it's the culmination of 13 years, and I'm not going to cry on stage right now, probably, but I'm just so incredibly grateful to every single person at this school, even Bradley. Um, it's I am so proud that I get to be a part of MNCS and a part of this incredible, amazing school. Um, well, what's next for me? I'm going to head up north. I'm going to Duluth for theater. And then after that, I'll hopefully be pursuing professional theater at a few of the theaters in Minneapolis that MNCS has taken me to. And then that far end way over there, at some point, it'll actually be a published graphic novel. Uh, either traditional publishing or self publishing, but it'll happen at some point in the future. Um, I want to say thank you, starting with my mom and dad. Thanks for having faith in this school, but also thank you for holding me together and holding me even when I wasn't all the way together. I want to thank my older siblings, Jonah and Katie, for having graduated here. I get to see what their life is like outside of MNCS, and I get to see the little light at the end of the tunnel of what this is all going to culminate to. I want to thank Max, specifically my co author, because I literally couldn't have done it without you. You wrote the whole thing, but you were also my mentor for most of high school. And even though you've graduated, you still take the time to help me out with so much. Speaking of which, research paper. So thank you, and thank you for all the things I can't even begin to explain. I want to say thank you to Lily Bell Foley and Ava Strand for being graduated and showing me the ropes and of what a senior project should look like. I hope I did yours justice. I want to say thank you to my friends here, Dylan and Coco, Zane, and Evalyn. I literally just wrote on my notes everything because I couldn't even begin to explain everything that you've done for me. But thank you for making me want to come to school every day. Okay, thank you to the cast and crew of the play. It was a huge, huge, amazing thing that happened. And I'm so, so proud of everyone in it. You've all grown so much, but I want to thank specifically Rayan for letting me be your mentor in these past 2 years. And I can't wait to come back in 4 years and see what you've cooked up. And I'm so proud of you. Um, Thank you to senior team for letting me do this. And thank you to Jim for everything that you've done for the past few years. You've really been my advisor, not just for school, but for life. You've taught me so much, and I don't know what I'm going to do without you in college, but I think I'll be able to handle it because of you. So thank you. Are there any questions? I think the main thing I discovered, I'm very picky with both of the art forms, but so much more with like visual art. It's a lot easier for me to experiment with theater, but digital art is also, I thought I would get tired of that way faster than I did. It is definitely something I want to pursue more in the future, and also just the repetitiveness of it. If you like, if I did anything else for 77 hours, I would have gotten sick of it so much faster. So that was like, it was a lot easier for me than I thought it would be. Yes. Hmm. Yes. Um, I prefer digital art over painting. But that's probably because I don't have a lot of experience with painting at all. Um, but it is a very hard tie between pen and pen and paper and digital art. There's definitely pros and cons to both of them, and both require a hugely different skill set. So, I guess over painting, I prefer digital. Zane, I just won't look at you. It's fine. Um, okay. Yeah, there's a specific one in there. So after they reach the dragon migration, that chapter, there's so much in that, and my dream is really to be drawing that chapter. I can imagine it right now with the sun just shining down on everything, and I cannot wait until my skill level can do that vision justice. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Evalyn? Yes. So they're both the main character. The other main character, Eli, that is a huge theme of the book. It's, of course, I tied my whole graphic novel to dragons. I love dragons. But so the dragon, the way he's transforming there is actually, it's kind of a representation of what generational trauma does to a family. It's, in magic-y terms, it's a curse on his bloodline, but the curse is trauma. So that's why he's turning into a dragon. Yes. Oh, wait, no, you had another question. I forgot. Well, honestly, filmmaking has helped so much with I if I had time, I would thank Dylan so much for that. But filmmaking has had a huge impact on how I have approached acting. I can't quite describe it, but there's an experimentation that I didn't want to kind of do because I'm so new to acting. I didn't really want to mess up the little opportunities that I've had. But since there's different takes with filmmaking, it's easier to relax and kind of let myself perform and just see what happens, which is something that I was able to take into the most recent play that I did. Well, I mean, I'm graduating, but I think St. Peter might have a spot for me. We'll see. Max. Well, you raised your hand first. Okay. Um, no. Sorry. I can't think of anything. I'm not the writer. Yes. Well, I kind of thought you knew what a bay was. My bad. So I drew that. I put so much effort into that prologue scene for my senior pitch, and then he's looking at it. He's like, "Well, why didn't you draw the beginning?" And I'm like, "What do you mean you didn't draw the beginning? This is what's in the doc." And he's like, "Oh, well, I just hadn't written it yet." And then when he finally does write it, I'm like, "So how do you want me to frame it so you can see that he's in a bay?" I don't want to hear it. Are there any other questions? Oh, yes, sorry, my bad. So I got the opportunity when I was 9 to go see a Broadway production of this musical, A Bronx Tale. And at that point, I'd been in dance for 6 years, and I knew I wanted to do dance, but watching how the dance and the costumes and the lighting, musical theater specifically, it was magical. It was the magical moment when I sat down after that and I talked to my aunt and my mom, who graciously took me along, and I said, I want to do that for the rest of my life. Oh,
Let's give it up for our seniors here tonight who presented night one of presentation night. It's in the books. We're really proud of you, and we're also just getting started. We'll be here tomorrow night, 5 o'clock, and Thursday night, 5 o'clock. You know you don't have anything better to do. Be here with us or stream online. We'll be posting that again tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming. Grab a treat on your way out. Again, seniors, incredible job. Thank you.